In this video, we're going to take a look at how to implement custom types in C++. So we're talking about classes. In the last video, we've seen how we declare a function and how we implement function in headers and CPP. Now we're going to take a look at how we declare and implement classes. So we're going to do the declaration in headers and implement the classes function in CPP. Let's get started. All right, let's go into our main function here. So this is great, but usually when you do games and everything, you need more than just the default data type that the language provide. You want to have custom types. Those custom types comes with struct and classes. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start moving stuff around so that we have kind of our own user-defined type that we can play with and refactor this code to make it a little bit prettier. So let's start with the case. Case is a great user-defined type that we could probably wrap a lot of information in because our game talks about solving case. So the first thing we need to do is declare that a case is a type that is valid in our application so that the compiler don't complain. So we're going to go in here because the declaration happens in header files, and to declare a class, we're going to do class and case. We do semicolon at the end of the declared class that says important. Visual Studio will add it by default, and most IDE will do it by default. And that's kind of it. Now we can go into our main and we can declare that we can instantiate the class. So we're going to do, be careful here. If you do a case, this is a reserved word, so you cannot use it. So we're going to do, let's say one of our cases, bank case. There you go. And now you have an object case. As long as you have the header file included, then it's going to compile. The compiler is not going to have anything to say about it because he knows that this exists. And if you run it, you're going to have the same thing as before. Okay, cool. Now we can start adding functionalities to this new user-defined type. So we're going to go here. And let's start with basically giving it a name. So usually the data you put in a class is going to be private, and you're going to get accessors method to kind of access that data. So the way to declare the access level in a class in C++ is done in block. So you're going to do public. Let's start with private because we want to make that private, the data private. And then you can just list variables and they're going to be private. So string name. Another thing that is really important, initialize your variable because the way the memory works, when this gets assigned a memory address, if there's anything inside that address, it's gonna be the default value if you haven't initialized it yourself. So it's safer to always initialize your variables. We can add some other information. Is case solved? By default, it's going to be false. We can have another is unlocked, which means in the progress of the game, have I unlocked that case? So by default, let's say we put false. We can put a case brief, which is going to be like kind of the introduction, like of the scenario headers that we had there. It's going to be the case brief, and then we want to have some kind of list of suspects. So we're going to go here, vector suspect, which is not a type, but we're going to create it because it would be really useful for us to have a concept of a type that is a suspect, because suspects hold a lot of information and we want to kind of group them together. So we're going to go suspect list. And then we're going to do another object, which is going to be a scene. So the scene is going to be like a list of scene where in that case you can go to find evidence. So let's go with a scene list. And we initialize it to an empty list. Okay, so right now he's complaining. Obviously, like if I compile this, it's not going to like it. It's going to give us a compile error saying that, let's go here, saying that undeclared identifier for suspect. And since it's undeclared, it's not a valid argument for the vector. So what we need to do is we need to define this. So we're going to go in here. We're going to create a new item, a header file, and we're going to call it suspect.h. We're going to add it, and we're going to create another one for the scene. So let's go here, new item, header file, and just call it scene. So now we just defined the class. So let's go class, scene, that's it. For now, we're not going to put any information in it. We're going to come back to it. We just want the compiler to be happy. So suspect. There we go. Okay, so now if we go back here, now the compiler doesn't know that these ones exist. So what we're going to do is we're going to import it. We're going to do include and scene.h and include suspect.h. And there you go. The compiler knows that these type exist. And if we go compile, he's not going to have anything to say. So good. We have some user-defined class here, user-defined type in our case.h. Now we have kind of the state. Now let's add some function to it. So we're going to put some public function because we want people to be able to access it. One thing that is important to know about object is that there's a constructor and there's a destructor. So we're not going to go too deep yet into these two concepts, but by default, when I declared an object of type case here, it called the default constructor, which means it called the case constructor that has no parameters. So there's nothing initialized, but I can still access this. Like I can still do here and initialize it myself. I can go bank case dot is oh no, I put them private. Sorry, I put them private. But if I go here and I put them public, just for the sake of this demonstration, I go back here and I do this. I can like set the values on those. I can say this is actually unlocked. But since we don't want people to mess with the different like variable, we usually put them in private and use accessors to modify them. Okay, so then we're gonna need, because also like when you create this like this, you would have to kind of set everything, but we'd like a nice way to create an object, an instance of that object, and also pass him all the parameters needed for that object. So we can declare our own constructor. So constructor is a function, and it's just the signature is a little bit different because you use the name of the class like this. So this is here the default constructor. Now what we want actually is we want to be able to pass him like kind of information like the name. So we're gonna go string case name. Is case solved doesn't quite need right now. Like if you had a save system and then the player could replay and some cases were solved, maybe you would, but right now we're not gonna bother with that. We're gonna say bool. We're gonna pass the bool is unlocked because maybe we want to start the game with some locked, but at least there should be one case that is unlocked. We're gonna go with just for name collision, we're gonna go is case unlocked. We're gonna go string case brief because every case is gonna have kind of a different intro, and then we want a vector suspect to say the suspect list, case suspect list, and then we want a vector of the scene, case scene list. Okay, now we have that, and we can actually define that constructor in the CPP. There's a shortcut, control and dot, that will pop you this. You can also right click and do quick action here. You can do create definition in case.cpp. It's going to bring you here to our CPP file. And we're going to take this because the constructor usually is always at the top of the file. And we're going to put it here. So one thing that is different, other than the fact that it doesn't have any return type, is this. So this is a scope, okay? So this defines that the case function belongs to the scope of the case class, okay? So since the CPP and the .h are not really linked in any way, this helps to say like, okay, this is a method that belongs to that scope, okay? So that if I had another, like here, I could, let's say I had a scene here, I could also have a method like scene dot dot. You wouldn't do that really, like you want usually one CPP file belong to actually one scope. And usually like by convention, we use the same name. So yeah, this is just the scope operator. So, okay, so here we have that, and then we can just assign our variable. There's multiple way to do that. You can go ahead and do this one, which is the one I'm gonna use. Unlocked equals is unlocked equals is case unlocked. Oh la 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 la. Unlocked. There you go. And then case brief. No, it's brief. Oh, did I name it the same by mistake? Yes, let's go just brief so that it's easier. Brief equals case brief. And then we can go suspect list equals suspect list. Case suspect list. And then scene list equals case scene list. There we go. So there's kind of two ways you can assign those. You can do it like this, or you could do it like this. So if you do this and you do the local variable name, so brief, and then you put parentheses, the parameter that you should assign to this variable, you can do that. And then you do, you can do that for everyone that you have. Usually I don't use really that way of initializing it because it can like look pretty big, and I don't want to go through all that way to see what the constructor does. There might be some cases where you prefer to use the other one. I usually don't use that way to do it. So yeah. So there we go. That way we have assigned all our values to our local variable. So we know now that we can construct the case and we can pass him like the different values. So if I go back here now, since I've defined a constructor, the default constructor don't exist anymore. We could define it, but we're gonna stick with this one. That's the one that I prefer to use. We're gonna initialize. To initialize, we're gonna do this, and then you pass the parameters in order. So here, I think the first one is the brief. Usually, I think I get some hinting from it. Yeah, this is not the one I want to do. This is the one I want. So I'm gonna do a case name. So let's say bank robbery. Okay. Is this case unlocked from the start? We'll say yes, it is. Then what's the case brief? The brief is you can put anything. It's going to be a little bit of a story that we put. Let's go. There's been a robbery at the local bank. Hurry up, detective. The banker is a friend of mine. Friend of mine. Okay, so we can do it like this, and then we can pass a list of suspects. So let's start by putting this on multiple lines because it's going to be easier to read. Like this. Now for the two other params, we need a vector. So let's go with vector. Well, we have that vector somewhere. I think it's in the case that CPP, right? For the bank. Oh, I don't think I've done the right one, but it's a spec list. Like that's what we want basically. So that's going back in the main. Let's put that here, and let's go back into the main.cpp and take the declaration. Go back in main and say this. So this is like kind of a, this is our suspect list, but we're going to change here. Bank manager, and we're going to put a security guard. That's what we had before. But now the thing is, this case actually wants object. Okay, so he wants the a vector of suspect. So let's go and suspect. And here we're gonna put some little information. For now, we're just gonna put the name of the person. Okay, so in public, we're gonna do a constructor. So suspect that take a string and suspect name. Okay, so then again, you go on this control dot or right click in actions, and we create a definition in suspect.cpp. If the file doesn't exist, it's going to create it for you. There you go. The file is created. It already included the header, but when you come here, string doesn't exist because we need to include it. So I usually include the things from the standard library into top here. So string, and we're going to do using namespace std. There you go. So now we have access to this. And now, you know, just to practice, let's do the other initialization method, and then we're going to pass in suspect name. So it's going to pass suspect name to the name attribute that is here. Okay, so our suspects can have names now. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create some suspects. Suspect here. Let's go bank manager, and then we're going to give him a name, which is going to be here, bank manager. There we go. And then that bank manager goes inside here, and we can change this to a list of suspect. So here I'm missing this, and there it is. Okay. Now I can put my list of suspect at the end here. And now we need to do the same thing for the scenes, because if you go to the construct of the case, it wants a vector of scene. So let's copy what it wants. Let's go here. Let's do this. So we want some scenes. Scenes don't have really any information right now. So let's go and do kind of the same thing as we did for the suspect. Let's just give it a name. There it is. And then on public, we want a constructor scene and a string scene name. Okay, let's go like this. Control dot. Just wait for the. Just gonna wait for this to kind of see that I have no declaration of that. I don't think he's doing it. Wait. I'm gonna go in here. Scene. Oh, I think he's detecting like the. I have a weird setup right now, but let's go and create it manually. The new item, scene. He's detecting that in my other project here, I have a scene.cpp because I've already done the whole project in here. Yeah, it's just Visual Studio not getting what's happening. So let's go in scene here, and we're gonna do this. We put the scope operator, dot dot, like this, and we do this. We're gonna need to include our .h. Include scene.h so that it knows about the scope. We need to include our string, include string like this. And we need to do the using namespace. Yes, there we go. And now we have it. And let's use the same initialization method. When there's like not too much parameters, it's cool to me to do it this way. Okay, so now we have a scene. So we can go here. Now we kind of have some little errors here about the suspect because this is still a string. So we're going to create another one here. And we're going to say bank guard. And then we're going to just call it bank guard. guard, not an S. Okay, and then we're gonna put here, oops, I compiled by mistake. I launched a build by mistake. Sorry, Vanguard is what we want to push because we want to push the object in the suspect list. Okay, cool. Now we have a scene list. We could go ahead and pass it directly, but we're gonna create a couple of scene. So let's say scene lobby, bank lobby, bank lobby. So the name is gonna be bank lobby. Cool. And then we're gonna do another scene here, which is gonna be bank vault. Good. And we're gonna go in here and say vault. Cool. And then in here we can just do case scene list dot push back and add the bank lobby, and then add the vault. Case scene list dot push back, and we can add the vault. There it is. And now in this case list we can just pass it to our bank case, and there we go. Now let's try to compile. We're gonna get a lot of errors here. Unknown override specifier for the string name, because there's no real concept of a string, so we're gonna have to include it. Include string again, and we're gonna still do the name using namespace std. There we go. Now let's go and compile. Oh, is it still compile? Oh yeah, no, I need to be in the main to compile. Let's go. Okay, let's go in here. We have a suspect list, redefinition, different basic types, and we have here C declaration of suspect list. Yeah, it is because I have a suspect list here and a suspect list here in the same scope, so he doesn't like that. So right now I'm gonna just remove all of this, okay? Because or I'll comment it out. Let's do that. Let's put some inline comment like that, and then compile, and then we succeed. Now if I run it, I have some error. So I have some linking error. And it's basically going to be the same thing. Like here, I don't have string, so I'm going to include it, string, and then using namespace std. There you go. Now let's try to run it again. There's going to be other errors, and we're going to go through them quickly. Oh, yeah, this is a mistake. This is a typo. Let's go. Continue with the output here. And then I have something. Hey, we have something here. Right now it's not doing anything because the only thing we're doing is creating the case object. We're not really doing anything with it. So we're going to go ahead in the main function and kind of start calling some methods on this object. Okay, so let's add a method to the case that we can call to output the case brief. So let's go in our header file, and we're going to do void print brief. Okay, so there we go. Control dot to have this created. So it goes in the CPP file, put the return, which is a void, do the scope, and then the method name. And then we just need to output our local state for the brief. So brief, and then end line. There we go. Now we have on every case object a print brief method. So we can go in the main and now say bank case dot print brief. There it is. And there we go. Now we can run this. And we get the brief. There it is on the subject of classes. So now you know everything about classes. You know how to implement them, and you know how to instantiate an object in C++ and then add function to it, add state to it, so that you can kind of start modeling your game. In the next video, we're going to take a look at pointers. So pointers are a big subject for a lot of people, but they are really simple. So in the next video, we're going to demystify them, and you're going to see it's really easy to understand. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.